when you started out, because you were originally, you were playing, you were
Yeah.
with guys. What's your memories of that transition, and how did you move from being, a member of the band as a guitarist and whatever, and to being the guitar tech? And how
Well,
did you think about
it was really it's a long story, but I can shorten it down.
Okay.
Right, let's start. Well, where do I start? So I was in the band obviously from the start, and then we played up in London, and we were getting gigs, and we were getting played in the radio for the first time. I don't know if you remember a radio station called Andover Sound.
No.
I think they were one of the first. Well, the guy was actually called Steve Jones. He was one of the first people to play us on the radio, and that was the old original Tragic Love Company demo, which you may have heard, you may not.
Probably.
So, yeah, but the band as such, I wasn't a Cwmaman boy either. I was the only one who obviously wasn't from Cwmaman.
Outsider.
So you could say that. And they were always destined to be a three-piece, really. And they went through numerous guitarists. I mean, after me, I guess I was in the band for about 3 years. We kind of fell out over something really trivial. I mean, I was drinking quite a bit as well at the time, so that didn't help. And we kind of fell out over something really stupid. I'd love to tell you, but I can't really remember what it was.
That's all right.
Yeah. So I was sort of out, and then they had another guitarist in, who was another Richard Jones, funny enough, who was in school with me, same class as me in school.
Yeah.
So I think he was in the band for a bit, and then they had another guitarist after that who was from a band in Merthyr, and then they sort of like, I don't know, they just went back to a three-piece.
Sorry, Sam.
Yeah.
So Kelly was just playing rhythm and singing, was he then?
Yes. Yeah. Well, he would play some leads as well, Kelly. So it was, but they were always, I mean, by the time they got back to that, we were just mentioned that filling station gig. They were back to a three-piece then, and the energy in that three-piece, as you remember, was something else. And I think the song was sort of suited the way the writing was going, and the song suited that sort of three-piece anyway, because it was little shorty, punky, like Tramps Vest and things like that. They were really, in your face, poppy, sort of, rather than long old bluesy type of stuff we used to do when I was in the band. And
I think I preferred. I think I really attached myself to those early songs as well. I liked that kind of more lo-fi, more in your face kind of stuff, I suppose.
I think the only thing Kelly didn't like at the time, because when they went to a three-piece, was they were getting compared to the Manics all the time.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But then, I mean, Kelly hadn't even heard a Manics record.
No.
So me and Stuart had, but Kelly was never really a fan of the Manics, I don't think. Whereas the rest of us were. But so I think it sort of played on his mind a bit, but he just wanted to get out, and that's why his songwriting developed. And well, I think they've lost sort of a bit of an edge now, to be honest. They've lost that sort of edgy sound, if you like.
Here's a question for you, Simon. Yeah, just reacting to what you're saying. You react to this how you like.
Yeah.
Do you think it's, as a band like the Stereophonics, who probably got signed because they have that kind of urgency to what they're about and the kind of personal message in the songs and everything else, but as they become more of a stadium entity as opposed to a smaller venue,
yeah,
do you think they tend to write for the spaces that they play in?
Definitely. Lately, I as it's gone on, I mean, the band has obviously gone back up to a four-piece now, obviously, as well as keyboards as well, and so I guess I think it's more mid. It's not really middle of the road, but it tends to be a bit more commercials, the wrong word probably, but it is, you
Well,
know, with the songs they've had out,
yeah.
you know, recently.
I mean, when you think about it, they obviously, I imagine that they're fairly successful in the American market. So,
yeah, which Kelly's tried all his life to try and break, and they're still at the same level they were
really
25 years ago in America.
Okay, I was wondering if that had something to do with it. You know, mainstream sound. I don't know.
No, it's a real strange one when bands sort of bypassed us, really. I mean, bands like Coldplay and stuff passed us and went on to, I mean, amazing success in America, and Muse and bands like that, you know. And Kelly, it's always been that thing for Kelly to try and break America. But they've never actually, I think they still play, well, I know they still play to like just theatre sizes in America, which is strange. But America's quite a big place, isn't it?
You at the time, or were you already quite techie with guitars?
No. I could play, I knew how to string them, I knew how to clean them, and that was good enough for me, to be honest.
That's about my level.
I had to obviously learn a lot more later on, and I did. But no, I mean, the first time Kelly actually asked me was that night we were talking about in the Colosseum that night to play. Yeah. Funnily enough. So I went to see them. I was talking to them after, and it's the first time I'd actually spoke to them all since we'd split up.
Oh, okay.
There was a good couple of years, you know, and we were all. It was back to like, yeah, you know. Okay, said, listen, we're gonna get signed and blah blah blah, and gonna be doing some tours and gigs. And I was like, okay. He said, you fancy coming on the road and just looking after me? And I was like, what's the pay? I wasn't working at the time because I just broken my leg playing football and I was off work on the sick. But I was off crutches and I went to see the boys and they said, you know, are you available next week for this? And I said, yeah, just let me know. And that was the start of that, really. And yeah, I had to learn a lot about guitars in a short space of time. Obviously, as Kelly's, I was looking after all the things. I mean, the amps and everything that Kelly was playing on stage, and so it was. And he went from one guitar to two guitars, and to four guitars, and then before you know it, I had 27 guitars on a world tour. You know, so it's to look after, plus 8 amps, you know, and numerous pedals and fans and stands for his words and
yeah. So when you're on tour, because it's interesting talking about this. It's interesting. I don't know anything about it. So, you know, when you're on tour and you got all these guitars flying around, are you literally just looking after Kelly's guitars?
I was
them up and swapping them over and all this bitty at the same time?
I was strictly Kelly. I mean, Richard obviously had his own tech, and Stuart obviously had his own tech.
Yeah.
And then he went to Stuart. Stuart and Richard's tech was the same guy, a guy called Stilly, who is still, I think, there now. Great, fantastic tech from Yorkshire, lovely boy, living in Germany now. But he's a fantastic tech, and I think he still works for Richard and Stuart now. Richard and Jamie now, I should say. And so they all had their own techs, and Kelly was like, you just gotta stick with me. If anything goes down wrong, I'm there. So that was basically what I used to do.
Do you remember any nightmare scenarios, like, you know, we're on stage in half an hour and oh my god, my electrics don't work, or something like this, or my neck snapped?
How long you got?
You got a good one off the bat when you think of it? Maybe one.
In the early days, it used to happen quite a lot. But obviously, the bigger the budget went, I would, when we used to go to rehearsals for even like tours in like clubs and stuff when we started in the UK, I was always pushing to get. I knew what I needed, but the band wouldn't pay for it. You know, it wouldn't be in the budget. You know, so we'd have to do the best we could, and we did, and pretty much got away with it, you know, for a long time. But then I think after Performance and Cocktails, and then Jeep, obviously, we were already as you know, we were already headlining tours then at the end of Performance and Cocktails, headlining arenas then which was mental. And going from like Club Ivor Bach, like you were just saying, to headlining.
I think I
in
saw
like
the Millennium Stadium. Was it? Did you do the Millennium Stadium on that tour?
2001 we would have the first time we would have done
You
the Millennium
played
Stadium.
with the Black Crows, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
Black Crows, like I can't remember who else was on the bill actually. I think Ash were on the bill as well.
Yeah.
Who we were quite friendly with because they were always everywhere we used to be. In festivals in Europe and stuff, they'd always be as well. So we got quite friendly. There's a lot of British bands actually we got quite friendly with because we'd all be on the same circuit. You know, we'd been this, there's some festival in Slovakia or Belgium or France or Germany, and we'd always meet up and we'd be on early because we were like just starting, and then we get pissed after we'd packed up, obviously after I'd packed up. So that's good. So I don't know what were we talking about there.
I was just wondering about like early on when I'll be a guitar tech, that's all fine, and then maybe you suddenly you're on tour somewhere and all of a sudden
things major that have gone down. To be honest, I've probably got there wasn't many major instances where we had power going in gigs. We supported the Manics one night. They were on the Everything Must Go tour then, that album, and we were lucky enough to support them on that tour. I think we were it might have been the Apollo in Manchester, and Kelly was halfway through Traffic, the song Traffic, and it goes really quiet in the breakdown, and then as he was about to come back in, the whole power went in the whole building, and it just went. And it was no fault of ours. It was actually the venue's power had gone. But that was one of the earliest sort of bad times where it all went quiet, and Kelly was looking at me and thinking, "Well, what do I do?" And I was like, "What do you want me to do?" But we made light of it, and the power came back on after about 5 minutes, and we carried on until Rapture. I think the fact that the power had gone off, and it was the people sort of remember that more than our gig, to be honest. And that's why we were always remembered up in Manchester then for that thing happening and us being pretending to be really cool on stage. But really we were thinking, what the hell are we doing by now? Just somebody take us away.
do you have to sometimes when you're out on tour with bands, do you have to sort of dive down the local, kind of guitar shop and quickly buy, I'll have that Les Paul off the wall sort of thing?
That didn't happen. It didn't really happen much because it got to a point where we were doing. Early on it probably did, but later on it was like sort of. We'd have what we wanted then. I'd pretty much if it was something I didn't have on tour with me, then it was my fault basically. And I would have to go out or send somebody out to get something, from some runner in some venue or something. And luckily they'd normally find it because runners are fantastic people. They always seem to find it.
Yes,
whenever you want.
Yeah, like a kebab or whatever,
Yeah, exactly. Or like cylinders of gas and air, for Stuart while he's in an interval when he can't breathe.
Wow.
And on a Sunday, which is quite impressive. But they came back with this big bottle and gas and air for Stuart, and he was like, "Can I keep that?" And he was like, "No, it's got to go back after you finish." So I did. Early on when we were doing like the toilet circuit then of the UK, obviously, which is still to me some of the best gigs I think people will ever play. But I think bands have got to play those places.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen so much anymore. Bands tend to rise up a bit quicker now, don't they? On the internet and blah blah blah. But they don't sort of pay their dues, so to speak. But we certainly paid our dues. And I would find myself sometimes going to music shops, maybe picking up not strings, because we'd had an endorsement by then, and it was we'd have as many really as I could carry for the tour.
Talking of strings, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when the band's on the road, right? Are you all traveling together? Are the band sort of, do they live in a sort of different time zone to you in a way? Are they in the hotel sleeping? You're already at the venue and you're restringing and tuning stuff,
Depends what band you're with. Early on, it was with the Phonics, we were all one big. I mean, there was only like 5, 6 of us on the road totally. Yeah. That was it.
In a van, yeah.
Yeah, that was the 3 band. Myself, Julian, and Dave Roden, who still does the sound. Dave from Abergavenny, who still does the live sound for the Phonics. Fantastic sound engineer. And he was lucky enough to always get his budget, funny enough, Dave Roden.
Oh, yeah.
But his job was quite important, I guess. So, yeah, so it was, we used to travel together all the time, and all the parties and the after shows and everything. Kelly and Stuart made sure that we were there, because I think they were still a bit wet behind the ears, and they needed us. Needed me just to be the clown and tell the jokes, and it makes people relax,
Stuart would have appreciated that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, he did. Yeah, and me and Stuart